Welcome to NCC Unplugged, the podcast from Norwin Christian Church where conversations, community, and culture converge.
Welcome, everybody. We are excited for you to join us on this special podcast called NCC Unplugged. My name is Jeff Terpstra, and I'm joined here with the staff of NCC as a bit of a anniversary here. So welcome, everybody, to our official one-year anniversary.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cue the music.
The fireworks, all that stuff. It's actually, I guess, it's not official one-year anniversary. It's a little bit past one-year anniversary,
Yes.
but the anniversary came at the beginning of December, and December around here tends to be busy, and so we foregone the anniversary a little bit until today. So again, everybody, congratulations. If you're watching on video, you see that we do not have any special hats on, or
1 year.
There's no cake.
Nope. I thought Garrett was bringing the cake.
Garrett?
You say it in the mic. I wish.
I really wish Isabel made us some desserts for this.
Oh, yeah.
I've had them once, and then I'm still thinking about them.
I can't remember. It's like a Brazilian dish. The chocolate one with the cream and the strawberries. Yeah. It's like brigadeiro or something like that.
How often does she make that?
Not enough.
Yeah.
There was one time she made it when we bought our first house in Kentucky. She made one for us, and then she made another dish for our neighbors, our new neighbors, and the new neighbors never got their dish. Like, I just ate both of them. And so we didn't get to let them taste heaven.
Well, I asked all the staff members to be here for this podcast, partly just to retell some memories of the podcast. I mean, it's only been a year, but maybe just some highlights, some things that they've appreciated with the podcast, kind of their interactions maybe with some of you as you've listened and had feedback yourselves, and some thoughts on the podcast a little bit. So Joshua, with you being on the podcast a few different times in different ways, do you have a podcast that you've done that stood out to you more than others?
So what sticks in my mind is not so much the podcast that I was on, but just the different ones that I listened to.
Yeah.
Two things: the ones where we got to know people and their stories more, and just in this format, kind of a relaxed format, having a little more extended time for people to tell their stories, and the ones where we got to learn more about our ministries here at NCC. And we're really blessed to have a variety of ministries serving in a lot of different ways. And any one person is probably not going to have their hands around all that's going on. Mm-hmm. But this is it's a way to learn more about that, and just to see the different ways that God is at work in our ministries and in people's lives. So I think those have been, as I reflected on the year of podcasts, those are the things that stuck out to me.
Yeah. You're a big podcast listener. You do it when you're in the car driving places?
Yeah, I typically do. Yeah. I like to keep up with it.
Have you ever given NCC Unplugged a 5-star rating?
I have.
Nice.
I have. But let's keep reminding everybody to do that. It's important.
Yeah. He only did that for his episodes. So.
Probably.
How often can we do it, Matt?
Only once per Spotify account.
Okay.
So if you have several email addresses you want to use, have at it.
It's interesting because every podcast you listen to, it's kind of at the end, they remind you to do that. And it can be easy to just kind of like tune it out a little bit. But absolutely.
As of right now, we have 11 star reviews,
nice.
But somebody didn't like us, so we're at a 4.9.
So there's one star?
I can't see what it is, but there's one not perfect 5-star if you're listening, or maybe you're not. Maybe that's why you gave us less than.
Hey, I consider all of us 5 stars, you guys.
That's
Don't
what I'm
listen
saying.
to Spotify.
That's what I'm saying.
You guys, you're 6 stars in my book. You know what?
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Blow it out of the water.
6.
All right, Jonathan, what about you as far as podcasts? Maybe Joshua, is something you've listened to or you've been a part of?
Yes, so my favorite one is also my least favorite, and here's why. I'll tell you why. because it's my favorite because the students are in it, and that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun making it, but in order to listen to it, I have to listen to myself, which I hate.
Yeah, your voice is really high pitched.
Yeah, it's annoying.
It is
and shrill.
So rough listening to. No, it's fine. We all have that though, where we don't like to listen to ourselves, right?
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's kind of really
easier after listening to that. But yeah, it was super fun to have the students on and to kind of like bring them into a different part of the church and like bring them out of their comfort zone from the downstairs to up here. And
who was on that podcast for those students?
So that was Lily, Eden, Adam, Grayson. No, Grayson wasn't on it.
Juliet.
Lily, Adam, Juliet. That was a long time ago.
It was.
And then we did another one with
Gage
Adam afterwards. No, Gage was Generation Sunday, Gage and Neela. But yeah, just hearing their hearts for CIY and the things that they do in the summer was fun. Yeah. And it was almost like I got to be more peer with them. Like, hey, you're kind of part of this thing that I get to do. Now you get to do it too. It was fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Matt, I think you've been involved probably in every single podcast we've done.
Yes.
Either behind the scenes or on the mic.
I have.
Thinking about different locations, different people we've had here. What's something that stuck out to you? Or kind of maybe a question for you is why do you still do it? Where do you see you're like, I don't want to do it because I'm told to do it. No, where have you seen the most value in the podcast?
I really like on a Sunday, and I know this has happened with all of us, where we'll just be out in the lobby and somebody will come up and mention something about the podcast that they listen to, maybe something personal that we shared or something funny.
Yeah, that's helped me realize sometimes I share things too personal because like someone will come up to me and be like, oh, I heard about this. And I'm like, how do you know about that? Because I forget that there's people that listen to this and I'm not just talking to the people in this room.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
How do you know
How do you know my
Amish
dog wears
literature?
a diaper?
Yeah.
Yeah, see? But yeah, so that's been pretty cool for me to see. One of I think early on, one of the ones that really sticks out is when we did a interview with your wife, Allison, for the missions. And I always knew about missions in the church, but it was really cool to do a deep dive. That was like one of the ones that started a deep dive on what the different ministries are. So you realize there's a whole lot more to them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool.
One struggle I have is balancing between being a Christian / church podcast and like coming up with like titles and stuff that will make people want to listen. So that's been fun. Sometimes I have to run them by Dana and she's like, nah, I wouldn't do that if I were you. So other times I don't listen and do it anyways.
Yeah. So Allison, what about you? What's something that has stuck out to you or something that you think is worth celebrating as far as our 1-year milestone?
Yeah. So I think the thing that I've liked the most about the podcast is the variety that we've been able to have. Like Joshua was saying, whether we invited guests on or whether we were talking specifically about things going on here at NCC, I feel like it has given us a broader forum than maybe we had with our Midweek Connect videos that we did prior to starting the podcast. As far as favorite episodes, I probably have 2, and both of them really stretched me. They were both a challenge for me, but they ended up being favorites. The first one is the one that I hosted with our friend Patsy Sassano from New Salem. I was really nervous. Up to that point, Jeff had hosted all, if not almost all of the episodes. And so to be the host in Jeff's place, I was super nervous about it. I didn't know whether I could keep the discussion flowing. I didn't know whether I would be able to ask the right questions. So that one kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone a little bit, but it was super fun to invite a personal friend to come and be a guest, and to let Patsy be able to share his heart for ministry, that I already knew from behind the scenes. It was fun to be able to interview him and let him share, with our friends here at NCC. And then my second favorite one was the one where Jeff interviewed me, about like my personal story and where how I came to be involved in ministry and things like that. And that one was really very vulnerable because I was able to share some of my story about battling with anxiety over the years and about how God really in the past year had brought a lot of change and a lot of stretching and healing in that. And I left that episode wondering, like Jonathan said, like, did I say too much? Like, do I want the whole congregation and possibly people over the entire country, like, knowing these things about me? But I know that God has given me a story. And so I was thankful for the forum to be able to share. But I really had to rely on him that day to say the things that needed to be said.
Yeah, cool.
You said country. We are worldwide. We have listeners, legit. We have listeners in China, in Russia, in Australia. We have several. Singapore, actually. Nice. There's like 2 or 3 listeners in Singapore as well.
All right,
some people say it's a VPN that just people are using, but I choose to think that it's actual listeners in those countries.
Yeah. Wherever you are, we appreciate you.
Yes.
I think just hearing Allison talk, like, this podcast has been neat to see growth from all of us in different areas as far as like being comfortable in front of the mic. And it's a different type of communication. It's a different type of, media. And so it's just different the way we plan and prepare and interview and get people to come on. And so it's been something that's been helpful and a stretch for all of us in different ways. And we do appreciate people listening and kind of sticking with us through, there's been episodes where it was like, I was bored and I was the one doing it.
Well, that's to that point too. There's been episodes, it's been interesting to see episodes going into it where I was like, we're going to get so many listeners on this specific episode, and like we don't. And then one that like where you and I are bored with ourselves, it gets more listens. Yeah. So it's been interesting, a learning experience.
Yeah. And we both know it's not just about quantity of listeners, right? We've joked about that a few times, but it's just our church podcast, and we want our church people to listen to it. And as far as it grows and gets out there, sure, we think, I guess to some degree, what we are saying is important. That's why we're saying it. Right. So yeah, like I think, as far as getting rated or whatever, that helps us get the algorithm in front of people's eyes, and more people come to know Jesus, and the kingdom grows, and not just in numbers but in depth. And so that could be part of it. But, going back and seeing the vast amount of things that we've done is kind of my favorite part. Just scrolling through and going, oh, I remember interviewing that person. I remember that story. I remember speaking on this issue. And there's one just scrolling a few seconds ago about, we talked about conspiracy theories a little bit.
Yes,
and, there's some things out in the world that kind of got us to think about it. And then does Scripture speak to this at all? It does, to some degree. And how we can reflect as believers on that and be better and different than the world in the way they react. And so just some of those things. And so I like pulling from that well of information we have. And somebody had a question once about the Old Testament. I was like, hey, we've done a podcast between the relationship between the New Testament and Old Testament and how we view some of those things. And so I just linked to that, and it's a lot easier than typing out a 10-page email.
Yes.
And so it kind of goes back to that. This form of communication is different, and it could be helpful for some of those things. So Garrett, what about you? What are some thoughts that you've had on the podcast as far as what you've heard or what you've been involved in?
I like all the roundtables that we get to do.
Yeah.
Because people don't see our staff meetings and just kind of see like the
which they should be thankful for. By the way. But yeah, go
4 hours later. But we're real close as staff, and for people to get to see that and see us beyond our, what we do on a Sunday morning or what we do in our focused ministry area, I think has been good. And I've had some comments on that it's refreshing to see like the behind the scenes and to see like the conversations that we just have with each other. And I've enjoyed that and doing that. The staff camaraderie we have and everything.
lot of people don't know this. The whole idea for the podcast was Garrett's. I don't know if you remember sitting in a.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not give him full credit here. We had talked about it before Garrett even came, but then when Garrett came, it was like Garrett was like, "Well, yeah, we could do it. Like it's easy. To, like I think our picture of it was like, man, this is gonna be really difficult."
Right.
And Garrett's like, "No, I've done it before. We can do it." So
we
definitely the impetus to get it started.
Right. Sorry,
because I had done one. I had done one in the past with a couple minister friends, and I think that was the only reason that it's just like I've done it. If I can do it, we can do it.
So I haven't asked you guys this yet to prepare for this, but what are some of your new ideas coming into the new year? Some things that you hope to see on the podcast or want to be involved in, maybe topics or areas of the church to talk about why we do certain things. Any thoughts on that? Because I want to get it from our listeners too. I want people to chime in with that. But
yeah, definitely comment in the comments. Let us know what you want us to talk about too.
Yeah. I want to see us talk about our newly hired worship minister when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've mentioned this on the podcast, how we're hiring a worship minister, and definitely have them on. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to continue to, for our podcast to go beyond the sermon a little bit and just offer deeper content and kind of bring conversations alongside of a sermon, because a sermon is a very special environment that we use to declare God's word, but it's more of it's more of one person that's sharing. It's just the way it's designed to work in the numbers that we have, and so it's just cool for a podcast to have the conversation behind that. So I look forward to more of that.
Cool.
If it meets with the number of votes needed.
It's not vetoed.
I don't mean to volunteer very specific people for this, but maybe I am. I don't know. I want to hear about ASL on the podcast and how,
which stands for American Sign Language.
American Sign Language, and how our church has had that new ministry spring up recently.
It's a great idea.
Yep.
Yeah. But we can't do the podcast in ASL because then they couldn't hear anything.
But wouldn't it be cool though to like have some of it?
We
like
have
with
a
the camera.
video.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a way to do it for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that would be super cool to hear their heart.
That would be
Right.
cool.
Yeah. Right.
I would like to. So our tagline is conversations, community, and culture. And I would like to hit on the culture aspect a little bit more. Sometimes we shy away from it just because, there are nuances to that category. But I would definitely like to see that. The other thing that I would like to see, I think all the staff would like to see, and I'm looking at you, Rhonda Schuler. I would like Rhonda, who is a staff member, to be on the podcast.
The big call out to Rhonda Schuler.
I just did that.
Which many probably know her by name. They've maybe even talked to her on the phone.
Right.
She's sorted through their prayer requests. She's organized them into ministries, whatever it might be, because Rhonda's our church secretary.
Yes.
And the 6 staff members right here that are sitting on these couches are present, and she is not.
Right.
And so you're calling her out.
I am.
Because she has said no to us before.
She has said no in
Numerous
such
times.
just a tone that I don't think she's ever going to be on, but
if she
God
gets
answers
enough,
prayers.
Yeah. If she gets enough petitions through her email, maybe through the connection card, maybe.
Let's spam the comments with Rhonda, go on the show.
Rhonda.
I'm talking to you, Rhonda. Make it happen.
Do you think she's listening right now?
No.
No,
but I mean, like, everyone's getting a backstage view of what we do in our ministries and our areas and everything. But the amount of work that Rhonda does behind the scenes that helps our jobs go a lot smoother and easier and everything as well. I think she needs to be on.
Rhonda's my work mom.
Yeah, there you go.
We established that early on. I think we established that when I went to her off her desk and I was like, "Can you double check that I addressed this envelope correctly?" And she's like, "Yes, I can." And then I've asked her many questions like that. What do you have to say?
Where do we go from there?
What generation are you part of?
Z, Generation Z. Gen Z. Yep.
Gen Z.
So I am Gen Z. So I'm the same as most of my students, actually.
You're just you're the older. part of it. They're the younger.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the first, like the current 7th graders are the first generation that I'm not in, like they're alpha gen. So by the time I've told myself I will not say that I'm old until they graduate high school, because then the entire youth ministry is a different generation than me.
There was something else that popped up recently that Jonathan didn't know based on his age. Do you guys remember what that was? It was like a cassette tape or something like that we were all like...
I know what a cassette tape is.
No, but it was something like just as obvious, we thought, that you had never experienced. Natalie had, but you had not. Is this ringing a bell?
No.
No? Well, no.
I mean, I grew up with VHS tapes.
We need to edit this out.
They're always like... like...
But a cassette tape is different than a VHS tape.
Well, I know.
Okay.
Yeah. But like I get like I don't know how to do it, but I know that you like put the pencils in and rewound them and stuff like that.
Hold up.
Only if they...
Yeah. That's not like a regular activity you do with them.
No.
I don't do it at all. Ever.
Nobody does. But, okay.
I remember there was one time we found a floppy disk up here. And I said like, oh, it's
I
the
give you
save
that.
icon. And you were like, I love that you said that.
But I'll give you that. That I can
old.
see you not knowing what it is or ever using. I use floppy disks for sure.
I know. I'm not.
just-
Yeah. I wish I could remember because it'd be funny.
Yeah.
But maybe on the next.
I mean, Joshua's
podcast.
definitely the oldest one here, so he knows all of this.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. I remember 8-track tapes. And everyone was silent.
Yeah, you were hoping somebody
Those would
goes,
definitely
me
be on
too.
me.
But
I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't using 8-tracks, but I mean, they were,
He's
they
trying
were
to
like
backtrack a little bit.
Parents,
now.
aunts, and uncles maybe had 8-tracks.
Yeah.
Cassettes were definitely
the thing.
my generation. So.
Yeah.
So I'm millennial generation, but like West Virginia, everything happens 10 years after the rest of the country. So like there's a lot of things. Like I remember not having internet at all, having dial-up for a really long time, and then having high-speed internet that was not high-speed internet.
Right.
My parents just got like true high-speed internet like 3 months ago. So like I remember all of those stages being a millennial because I'm like at the tail end of the millennial.
That's definitely more than like 10 years behind.
Oh, really?
For high-speed internet.
Oh, well, so like they don't have fiber where they're at. They just got Starlink, and now they have actual internet.
I see how the arrival of internet kind of paralleled you giving your resignation here.
Like you're not wrong. They got Starlink. Like
If Garrett's coming back home, we
I
need
can
internet.
go home now.
there is like some overlap there. Not saying that's the reason. But
Maybe Garrett leaving us definitely needs to be some topics of podcasts and leave us with some words of wisdom over the podcast in different ways.
or at least tell people I'm not leaving disgruntled or anything. Like give some background to it.
No, you're not disgruntled. You're excited about the internet.
Yeah. No, we definitely want to hear from you guys, what you want to hear on the podcast. We want this to be something that's beneficial and something that's of value to you. And so, you, like Matt said, you can leave it on a comment through whatever you listen on, or come talk to one of us. My email address, I hope, is super easy to remember. It's just jeff@norwinchristianchurch.com.
That is super easy.
Yeah. Some smart tech person did that. Which at first I thought was you, Matt. but I
Not
think
me.
it's
Yeah, I was
beyond
going to
you.
say it wasn't me. That was before.
But Matt would have
me.
done the same thing because he's just as super smart with that stuff. So feel free to reach out. We talk about topics and what we need to do. I think some people are really surprised that we tend not to plan these out.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't plan word for word what we're going to say or who's going next. So we're like, oh, it sounds like you're super prepared. There's probably been 5 of the 44 episodes that were super planned out. Like, when one week we talked about Israel and
there was a whiteboard off the
our
screen
relationship
for that.
in the United States and how we see Israel in the Bible, and then the relationship between the Old Testament, New Testament episode like that. Some of those are definitely planned out, but an episode like today where, like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. Here's some things to think about ahead of time. But, whoever's going next is kind of just whoever I point at and who's ever got the mic.
And I think that's something that's fun to like listen back to the first couple of episodes versus now, because while we're still like not perfect at this, I remember those first couple of episodes, we were really nervous about like, well, who goes next?
Yeah.
And no one would talk over anyone else. And it was kind of like everyone took their turn. And so it has been nice that we have gotten a little bit more comfortable to where we can have more of a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember one of the first things saying, like, when I introduce you guys, you need to say hi. And no one did that today when I was excited for the 1 year anniversary, except for Jonathan.
Yeah.
See, yeah,
You're welcome.
I was like, yeah, you're.
I think it was landline phones.
Coming
Wow,
back
we're
to
bringing
that.
this all the way back.
I think because she had one in her room growing up, and I never actually had like a true corded phone.
There was something with phones, like we had a phone around the church, and you're like, I've actually never used those. Like, I know what it is.
Or maybe one of the
dials.
rotary.
Yeah,
Rotary.
phone.
the spinny phones.
I should just let you go and
Yeah.
try to figure out what it's called.
Yeah.
If I put a rotary phone in front of you, would you know how to work it? I think that's what
I
it was.
think so.
How do you work?
Okay, so yeah, so
You
the
put your-
zeros up. No, hang on. The zeros up at top, then 1, 2, 3, 4, like a clock going around to 9.
Okay.
So if you called the church office 724-863-2141, how would
Right.
you do that?
I know that you can't just do it. There's something you have to do first, but I don't know what it is. Like, you can't just dial like 7 and drag it and 2 and 4. Isn't there something you have to do first?
No. Pick up the
I mean, you gotta
receiver.
pick up the- yeah.
Maybe that's what it was.
But so like when you do 7, what do you do?
You put your finger in the 7 and drag it to the hook thing.
Yeah. Okay. So you drag
Yeah.
it around. Okay,
So I think I've never
So you're there.
It's like
physically
dragging
done it.
with a mouse.
Maybe
It's
Natalie
like
has.
dragging.
Okay, you're good. No, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
I just wanted
the
to
way you
say
came
that
about
before we
it
left.
was,
There's hope.
I thought you were throwing
There's
something in
hope.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I played.
But yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, go off a rabbit trail, but I played the sound of a dial-up modem for my daughter one day.
Yeah.
And she was like, "What is that?"
Screeching.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh yeah." And then my wife and I were like, "Oh yeah." Then we'd pick up the phone, be like, "I'm on the internet, Dad." And
Yeah.
all that.
For a while when I was in middle school, we had 2 phone lines, so that
yeah.
was nice because then somebody could be on the
Yep.
phone and the internet at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah. Yep.
Hoity-toity. But that was nice. So, yeah, where are we in this? I have no idea.
I think we're ending.
Let's try to wrap it up. So I don't know where to go.
Listen.
We really appreciate where we are with this podcast. We'll keep doing it as long as you keep listening. We think, it's something of value there. And part of it is just building this library of, people talking about the ministries we have as a church, interviewing people that are in the church and their stories, talking about the issues that we think are important to the church from culture and different things. And so we'd love for your input where we move forward in 2025, and still saying that's a little bit weird that we're in the year 2025. We thought we'd have flying cars by now, but here we are. So
Disappointing.
really thank you for listening to NCC Plugged. We'd love for you to continue
You said
listening.
it. He just said it.
NCC, did I say plugged?
You
NCC
said plugged. Yep.
I think
I don't-
it's perfect though, because how many times has he called it NCC
And I'm not sure
Plugged?
why. I don't know what disconnect is in
You've
my
been
mind.
doing so good with
Yeah,
not
lately
calling
I haven't
it that.
heard it at all. So
NCC Unplugged.
Unplugged.
Okay.
full circle
Okay, well,
moment. It's
there we
okay,
go.
Jeff.
Wow.
Bye.
Bye.